I'm not even really sure what happened, but the house rotted and was finally torn down. But somewhere in this spot right here is where my life would change forever. Is where I committed the homicide. Putting the neighbor back in neighborhood as a concept for community redevelopment and the revitalization of underserved communities is based in the concept that's been studied out. 30% of Americans, just in America, 30% of Americans have never spoken to their neighbor. One of the reasons that we call underserved communities the hood is because neighbor is oftentimes de-emphasized. People start representing locations rather than representing the people that are in the community, and can oftentimes begin to feed on the people. You see drug dealers sell drugs to people in the community that they live in. They kill people in the community that they live in, or people who kill people in the community that they live in. And it's given rise to this idea of black on black crime, which is also a misnomer. It's simply crimes of proximity. These are the people that we're close to, so there's no reason to emphasize that 80% of white people that are killed by white people, 85+%, so Asian, same thing, it's about proximity. But when you develop a social philosophy that you can live in isolation and that you don't need anybody, well, that kicks in your survival mentality, and survival mentality leads to criminality. And definitely there are a lot of social situations that have contributed to that, everything from redlining, Jim Crow, and all those things in the black community. Black people were put in, what we call black people, were put in situations where survival became their mentality. And when you are put in that frame of mind, then criminality can be a result of that. Now, people will say, well, there's a lot of people that came out of those situations and they didn't, do that at all. Well, I'm not saying that they didn't, they didn't become that. Praise the Lord, right? My point is this: if only 10% were affected negatively by it, if your roof leaked 10% of the time, would you do something, right? If your employer didn't pay you 10% of the time, would you do something? And so I think that it warrants attention that there are a number of people, millions of people, who are negatively affected by those things. And part of that effect is isolationism. I think it's notable to acknowledge that 30% of Americans have never spoken to their neighbor, according to studies. And there are communities that can afford that, and then there are communities that are underserved that can't afford that. When black people isolate from each other and are living in survival mode, they tend not to do well in these underserved communities. So teaching them how to change their social norms, influencing them with understanding of the power of relationship development in communities, how we can work together, if we can learn how to share time, how to share ideas, and share a willingness to invest in making those ideas a reality. We have the resources that we need in those communities. And if other people will start to look at us as humans rather than black people, the black community, these are human beings that everybody needs to get invested in teaching, and not just, giving away stuff, what I'm saying, just write a check and or give somebody a house or give somebody a car. No, teach me how to function in a community that I want to get better. Teach me how to make the contribution to that. So putting the neighbor back in neighborhood, we emphasize changing social norms, like when somebody moves into the community and they're new, and it's a Section 8 home, and it's a single parent, and they're going to be living in poverty, right? Instead of just looking out the window and hoping that the kids aren't too bad, literally go integrate them into the community by knocking on the door, taking them a t-shirt, taking them a gift card, letting them know where the neighborhood association is, kind of giving them a feel of what the standard is. Right there, when you knock on the door and introduce yourself, that opens up a door for social influence, which is the most powerful force we know of. It's, you know, some people would call it peer pressure. But if you open up that door, then you open up an opportunity for relationship. And people in relationship tend to want to do better for each other than those that are not in relationship. If I just look out the window and let whatever happens, happens, then, you know, later on you find out that they're making meth in the basement, or they're, you know, selling drugs, or the kids are, you know, becoming, you know, little pirates in the community and stealing loot, you know. But you could have influenced that simply by integrating that person into the community and sharing what you have in wisdom with them, and vice versa. And so now you're in a relationship. Other things that are simple things that we can do. You know, we do community cleanups, but again, without relationship, that's not really going to have the effect that we want to have. You know, people really need to get in relationship with each other. You know, I would do things like do fish fries for my neighbors, bring people into my home, you know, which is a very intimate kind of thing. Once you bring somebody into your home, right, then it creates a kind of bond. And we've got to, you know, go back to these types of things if we're going to develop community. You know, today you find people don't even want you to come in their house. You know, if they don't say it, they just never invite you, you know. So, I mean, you can go out, right, but it's not the same thing. And I do think that people should go out with their neighbors. But I think that another thing that people should do is start discussing ideas about how to improve their communities. And this is not something that you see on a regular basis. I frequented many neighborhood association meetings that are simply places where people come and dump their complaints about what's going on, rather than bringing their ideas about how to change what's going on. So, yeah, putting the neighbor back in neighborhood is, I think, going to be an integral part of changing any community. And again, one of the reasons why is that you can change infrastructure, you can change, you know, buildings, and you can put, you know, change laws, right, that affect, you know, things like lending and housing and so on and so forth. But if you don't change the people's minds, if the people's minds are not ready to receive, you know, policy changes, then they're just going to go back to what their normal is, and their normal is chaos. Poverty is the result of a mindset, which is again why I was able to get out of prison and not be living in poverty today.